Hi, Connie Newsbaum, Dawn Bodak, and me, Brianna Files, decided to do our presentation on, we titled it Embrace the ADHD Wiggles, Creating Classrooms that Allow Movement and Prevent Shame. And we thought of a lot of ways that maybe people can help prevent shame in students with ADHD. But because there were so many, we narrowed it just down to one way. So let's get started. The problem is that for people with ADHD, shame arises from repeated failures to meet expectations from parents, teachers, friends, and the world. It's estimated those with ADHD receive 20,000 more negative messages by age 10 than they do positive messages. They view themselves as fundamentally different and flawed. Here are some definitions. First one, ADHD. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's characterized by an ongoing pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity and impulsivity. And a lot of times, girls and boys are have those different behaviors. For girls, it's often inattention, and for boys, it's often hyperactivity and impulsivity. And so a lot of times girls don't get diagnosed because they're not being distracting. So next definition, we're talking about what those certain areas of ADHD are. One is inattention. Like I said, it's defined as difficulty staying on task, sustaining focus, and staying organized. And these problems are not due to defiance or lack of comprehension. This was me as a child, and even now. Hyperactivity in ADHD. This indicates that the person moves continuously in any situation or excessively fidgets, taps, or talks. Impulsivity in ADHD is difficult with self-control, interrupting often, making decisions without considering long-term consequences. And for some people, this sounds like, well, this is just any kid. Any kids do this. And a lot of kids do this that don't have ADHD. The difference between a kid that does this, and a kid with ADHD who does this is that a kid with ADHD usually does these things all the time. It's a constant issue. And then we want to talk about shame too. So shame is an unpleasant self-conscious emotion often associated with negative self-evaluation, motivation to give up, and feelings of pain, exposure, mistrust, helplessness, and worthlessness. Brene Brown says that guilt is a focus on behavior, shame is a focus on self. And Brene Brown says guilt means I did something bad, shame means I am bad. And we just wanted to share a little bit, the three of us wanted to share a little bit our personal stories about ADHD. Connie, did you want to go first?
I can go first. So my son, Johan, is 8 years old, and I see him going to a private Christian school, and I have a lot of impact there, and I can speak up, which is not always in public schools, but still, he's often coming home crushed. People don't like me because I'm wiggly. People don't care about me. I'm not worth as much as the other students because I'm not as successful. And he has this hyperactivity inattentive type of ADHD. So he is super, super wiggly. And it breaks my heart. Some days he's just not wanting to go to school because he's expecting that he's looked down at, that his name is called in front of everyone again. And it just breaks my heart as a mother that I'm not only seeing him being helpless, I'm actually helpless as a mother. I can encourage him, but I cannot step in the classroom and help him there. I can remind teachers and I can help to build him up. I can write emails. I can give them some of the tools that we will talk about later into the classroom, but I'm not present. And this is my day-to-day experience with my son.
Thanks, Connie. Dawn, did you want to go next or you want me to go?
You can go.
Okay, so my story is that I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 36. And all of a sudden, when that happened, a lot of things made a lot of sense to me. The puzzle pieces kind of started to come together. So there was an explanation as to, why I have difficulty focusing on anything that I'm not interested in. An explanation as to why my desk at school was never tidy and my bedroom looked like a tornado had hit it. But despite that fact of that explanation, and at first feeling relief about it, there was also a grieving process because I started to think about what could have been different had had people known at a younger age that I had ADHD and been able to put some, different tools in place. So despite the fact that I've had that explanation now for 14 years, it really has done little to squash the shame that I felt, starting as a child. And I don't recall my parents or my teachers ever calling me stupid or lazy. But that's what I started believing as a child. And it's what I still have to fight today at 50 years old. And this is despite the fact that I've been a successful business owner for 20 years. I've raised an amazing kid who is 22 as a single mom. It's despite the fact that my friends and family tell me how wonderful they think that I am. I still deal with that shame. It's still a struggle to believe those things that I know must be true about me. And like I said, there was, some grief too, thinking about how things could have been different. I wonder if I'd been diagnosed as a child and had teachers that had the best knowledge and the best tools to teach me in the way that I learn best, had learning in different ways been normalized, or, even just had someone known the shame that I was feeling, how much of a difference that would make in my life, not even just in the things maybe that I could have accomplished that I struggled with for so long, but also just, my self-esteem, the way that I feel about myself. I think it could have made a world of difference. So that's my story. Dawn?
So I wrote my stuff down so that I don't ramble off, because that's one of the things, that I've, experienced a lot of criticism for. As a child, I constantly disappointed the adults in my life. No matter how hard I tried, I constantly screwed up, and it was the same mistakes over and over again. I didn't have wiggles, but I was always on the move, and I regularly had to have my seat moved because I talked too much. I know you're surprised. And my impulsiveness, it basically made me a bull in a china shop. I didn't think things through. So there was a lot of that. A lot of people misunderstand today and even then that my, incessant talking is an unquenchable need to be heard. No, it's just that I have 100,000,001 ideas in my head, and I really think you need to hear them all. And if I don't get to tell you them all, they swim around in my head going, look at me, look at me, look at me. And so that's hard to control as an adult. It was even harder to control as a child. Out of the hundreds and thousands of negative messages I received, none of them offered solutions. I did receive a diagnosis as a kid, but this is what receiving a diagnosis as a kid looked like for me. I lived by my cousins. We all came home from school, and there was chocolates that afternoon. And back then, that was a rarity. And so everybody dips in and starts getting a piece of chocolate. And my aunt moves the box away and says, no, not you. You're too hyper. No more sugar for you. And then I stood there and listened to the adults talk about this issue that I have and how no sugar was going to fix it. So then you know, that might not seem like a big deal, but it really did have a huge impact on my psyche, and it wasn't a rare occurrence. And then there's the emotions, because I got some emotions. And even as a kid, like getting excited wasn't acceptable. I would get so excited. I think I stemmed, like, because I would be like so excited, Dawn, knock it off. You know, and it was just, what do you do with that as a kid? It wasn't until about a year ago that I started figuring out like what was wrong with me. And it was via Instagram. Instagram finally taught me what was wrong with me. And it's not that I'm bad. You know, that was huge. We just had that. It's on the slide. You know, that's the message I've told myself for so long. Since learning all of this, the success that I've had has just been life-changing. The confidence has grown. The negative self-talk is almost non-existent. There's still those moments when I screw up, when I'm not able to control the talking or what have you, and I go out, you know. It also turns out I'm not lazy and maybe not a procrastinator. My brain just gets overwhelmed easily. Something as simple as making dinner. I don't just think about that step to get me started. I think of all of the steps it's going to take all at the same time. And then I'm like, peace out. So now I know to break things down into little things, little steps. And then also I adjust my to-do list. The harder, more overwhelming tasks that need to be done, get done in the morning. And the less important, easier tasks are in the afternoon. And usually the success from the morning, getting stuff accomplished in the morning, provides enough motivation to get me through the afternoon. But if it doesn't, they're not big consequences. This semester, this is the most important part. I'm excited. I've gone way over my time, but we all knew I would. This semester, I have turned in every single assignment early. In fact, I am done with my semester. I'm just waiting for that final to open up. I've always been a successful student, but I've never had success in that manner. And like Bree, I think back, like, can you imagine if those were the messages I would have received when I was 8 versus, you know, all those messages that told me I was annoying or a disappointment. So I don't have a good segue out.
Thank you, Dawn and Connie. So I think, I mean, these stories illustrate how devastating it can be for people throughout their entire lives to not get positive messages about themselves and the way that they learn. So like I said earlier, this is just one very small piece, but the thought is that if we can make people aware, you know, teachers primarily is what we thought about, but also, you know, parents, we can make them aware, maybe it just brings some realization that there are options that can help their child. So our next definition is wiggles. Wiggles are a strong expression of a child's natural need to move or fidget that can be back and forward or side to side motions or jiggling or just moving around. Now, how can teachers help? Well, a 2015 study published in the Journal of Child Neuropsychology found that children with ADHD perform better on a complex attention task when they are fidgeting. And I'm going to let Connie take it from here.
So, and as I shared earlier, my son is suffering from ADHD, and we tried a lot of things. And some of them I want to share with you today that work in our day-to-day life. Can we get to the next slide, please? Thank you. So there are some things, some I'm mostly experiencing from home because they don't exist in the classroom yet, but they're very helpful. So there are tools that allow kids to move while they're doing homework or work in the classroom, and they increase focus while they do it. So on the left-hand side, you see flexible seating. Flexible seating are things like wiggle seats or special cushions. exercise balls instead of chairs, sensory pillows, elastic bands on a chair, and we want to show them to you in a little bit. But also they are focus increasing tool like therapy putty, chewable pencil toppers, chewable necklaces, and bracelets. And here are some examples for flexible seating solutions. You see, again, on the left-hand side, the kids are sitting on exercise balls that you may know from the gym or even from hospitals. Here's a whole classroom that has those balls instead of chairs. And my son is going to a private school. They have good funding. And I know that they have the possibility for every child to use those in the classroom after parents spoke up, and they encouraged, especially during tests, to use it. I know, though, from a lot of friends, public schools do not have the ability to provide this to their students. And on the right-hand side, you see elastic bands between the front legs of the chair. They're just seriously allowing the legs to wiggle up and down, left and right, and let the kids focus while they move. And further flexible seating solutions are wiggle seats. They're just little kind of like pillows that have different surfaces that the kids are sitting on, can move on, can touch, or can stand on for balance. And on the right-hand side, it's actually my most favorite thing that we discovered. It's called a peanut ball. It's not like an exercise ball. That's just a tool where kids can roll on, sit on, jump on. And my son will show you actually how this works. That became one of our most favorite things. They're a little bit more expensive than exercise balls, but they really allow kids to get their wiggles out and to be afterwards more focused on their work. So this is Johan. He is 8. Here he's showing his sensory pillow. He really likes to sit on it, wiggle on it, touch it, because there's a lot of sensory input to these different surfaces. And he just enjoys sitting there. And while he's sitting, he's actually much more focused on reading and writing. And next we see Johan on his peanut ball, sitting, rolling, laying on the floor. It's a fantastic tool to get his wiggles out. And we also created a video. So Johan himself will show us, and we actually used his platform. Johan has wiggles and he has his own YouTube channel. And this YouTube channel involves showing his wiggles while he is unpacking Pokemon cards. And we already using his platform out there and made the video that we have public on the YouTube channel and on Facebook. And people can actually watch it. We shared this with his school and already got feedback from his teachers. And a lot of encouragement that we need to keep on pushing for this, because the schools, not only the schools, the students in the schools need it.
Are we good to share now?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, I'm Johan, and when I'm doing Pokemon cards, it keeps all my wiggles in. First up there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 packs. But when I'm doing homework, it gets all my wiggles out.
What helps Johan to get focused on his homework and get his wiggles under control? For example, this amazing peanut ball. And Johan will show us how it works.
Just boing, 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 boing.
And this is a sensory pillow that Johan has on the floor, but you can also put it on the chair while you're working.
Please.
And Johan, can you show us your beanbag that you put on your lap? That helps sometimes to get your wiggles in and to focus on your homework.
This is it.
That is it. And finally, I think Johan's most amazing things are his fidget toys. One is his little fidget watch on his arm he plays with. Oh, it's just little fidget spinners that Johan likes to play with. Like this little one here. So Johan, would you like to have those in your classroom?
Yes. And I wish all the teachers had these in their classroom. And I wish my teachers were more patient with me.
Thank you. So there's definitely a need for those things in the classroom. And not only the moving pillows and everything that allows kids to wiggle, but also those smaller tools like focus increasing tools. And Johan showed us his watch that he plays with on his arm and the fidget toys that actually are not very well accepted in school. What is though accepted is therapy party, just to play while they are working, just to keep their hands busy. And powerfully, when kids keep their hands busy, kids that suffer from ADHD, their brain can focus much better. The same for chewable pencil toppers, necklaces, and bracelets, which are easily available. But we also still need to push teachers to accept this in the classroom because they are very simple tools that can be highly effective. So, and finally, we talked just about tools in the classroom, but at the end you heard Johan saying he wishes that teachers would be much more patient with him. And I want to add not only teachers, but also his friends in school. They are all not always patient. And here we see something that's called the 5 C's, which I got from a book that seriously changed my perception of ADHD as a mother. It's called What Your ADHD Child Wishes You to Know. It's written by Dr. Sharon Zerline. And it's written out, she's a therapist, and it's written out of the view of children suffering from ADHD. And it changed how I talk to my son and how I interact with my son. These 5 C's are not about the kids. These 5 C's are about me. And hopefully that can be the 5 C's for teachers. So the first one is self-control. It's more looking at myself. It is challenging when my son is wiggling all the way around and doesn't get homework done, runs 3 times around the table, jumps up and down. It is challenging. And I want to yell at him, stop, sit down, stop. But my self-control says, my son has ADHD and he needs to move to get his work done and accept it. It goes into compassion. My compassion is, what is my son experiencing right now? When he's all over the place, wiggly. He's not doing this intentionally. And I can feel for him in this moment and feel with him what he's going through. A very important part of our life became collaboration. So instead of working against each other, kind of sit, be quiet, we're working together. I let him run, I let him wiggle. In a day-to-day life, we have just a working together atmosphere in our house. And then there's consistency. Consistency means we're doing things over and over again, the same way. And every day again, like my son needs to learn the violin. You have to do this over and over again in the same pattern, the same way to get routine, and that helps him to focus. And finally, I think that's the most important part, and that is rarely acknowledged. It's celebration. We celebrate every little success. My son gets high fives for little things that he gets done. When he has a moment where he can focus, where he reads a whole page without running away, we celebrate. And our day becomes joyful and bright instead of bothering one another and creating shame in our house. Unfortunately, I see this in our house right now. And what I would love to see that we can translate it into the classroom, where we provide teachers with tools through funding, but also with the knowledge and the heart change, how we interact with those kids. And in the next slide, we see it even is pointing us back to God's word, because in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8, we talk about love, and we love children, and we need to show them our unconditional love. And we can forget it if our kids are wiggly and inattentive. So I just let it read to you. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And this is a way we should love the kids that suffer from ADHD, everyone in our life. But I just want to focus especially those that show some behavioral differences, that we need to put more effort into those Christ-like behaviors. And finally, another tool are meditation and mindfulness that we need to bring more into school. Sometimes it's just learning to pause. If we are all over the place and the wiggle's gone, just pause and slow down and calm. For my son, we found some apps on the phone that have some special music and rhythms that help him for a moment to slow down and to be calm. Easy to use in a classroom. We need to start with simple mindfulness practice, just like breathing routine. We talked about that routine can be very helpful for kids with ADHD. It can be simple yoga or very simple guided meditation. And again, there are beautiful apps and tools out there that can just be easily integrated in the day-to-day life. And lastly, what I really like with my son are body scans. Just focus on parts of the body. How does your little finger feel right now? How does your ear feel? How's the tip of your nose? And having the kids focus on different body parts calms them down and takes for a moment those wiggles away. And Bria, I think this is where you're sharing again.
Yes. So there's some other ways that people can advocate for students. Like I said, primarily teachers, but also anybody can do this in their own schools. Even if your child doesn't have ADHD, even if you don't have a child, you can advocate these things with your school board for funding the PTO or PTA at your school. So one way is to speak or write, like I said, to your local state or school board or PTO or PTA about funding. Especially in public schools, there is not that funding available. I mean, there's not funding available for much at all, other than the bare minimum. And these tools can be expensive. Teachers, pay to stock their own classrooms and don't make much. They can't afford to buy these kinds of things themselves. Another thing is to empower students, just, to let them know when you need to wiggle, when you need to move, when you need to doodle, when you need to play with your play putty, you can get that out and do that. Whatever you need to do to focus, you can do. I'm obviously within, reason and not distracting, other kids and things like that, but, letting them know whatever they need to, stay focused. And then pursuing continuing education and professional development about teaching students with ADHD. And then lastly, offering alternative options for testing, like, instead of a written test, do an oral test or break it up into smaller tests for students who have a hard time focusing for an extended period of time. These are all ways that teachers or even you can help advocate for students. Dawn?
Yes, ma'am. So we were actually pleasantly surprised by the significant amount of information and education out there. As you see here, we have Chad is just an amazing, comprehensive website. I think that they do a lot to spread education and to really unite some resources together. Under that same umbrella of CHAD, they have the National Resource Center on ADHD. They provide a directory so you could find somebody local who specializes or is actually trained in ADHD. And they even have a 1-800 number that you can call to get some assistance. We have Advocacy. That's another website with a plethora of resources for teachers and parents alike. This website actually made it particularly hard to keep within the parameters of our project because there's just so many tools out there. And I think for me, that's one of the things that actually makes it disappointing, that the classroom has not actually changed since even when I was a kid. You know, we know these things, and yet, you know, there's this big lag of the classrooms catching up, being able to offer the diverse settings. Let's see here. We have, Bree, can we go to the next slide?
Yep.
Some of our professionals out there that are just real champions for ADHD. William Dobson, he's a leading expert, author, advocator, educator. Again, he's just really out there promoting some different approaches. Roland Rotz, I don't know that I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's a leading expert and he does an excellent job explaining how fidgeting leads to improved focus. You know, we heard Connie mention that the fidget toys aren't real welcome in the classroom, yet we have this research linking you know, the ability to fidget to increased focus. So where are we going to be able to mesh those worlds? Karen Huberty, she provides a great breakdown of executive functioning. Again, something that I'm just learning, but students with ADHD, they actually have delays in the mental processes that would help them be able to concentrate, help them be able to organize, help them be able to remember classroom routines. Again, Connie just mentioned the need for that repetition. So I think that that's key for understanding. And so to encourage teachers to do that, continuing education and learn these things is just imperative. Finally, we've got Sherry Gent. She's an excellent, or she offered an excellent podcast. So I'm visual. So to ask me to listen to a podcast, I was not impressed. But she drew me in. And one of the things that this one I listened to talked about addressing classroom behavior. But my favorite thing that she said is they would if they could. And if I could help anybody understand anything about myself as a child and even now, if we would, we could.
I was muted, sorry. Thank you, ladies. That is it for our presentation. Please post any questions on the discussion board. We will be happy to answer them. And if we don't have the answer, we will do whatever we can to find that for you. Thank you.
Thank you.